Trust. Do you trust the government? We care about the small people. We care about the small people.
Through in the fight against cancer from the University of Alberta tonight. Researchers there have found a certain compound can shrink cancer tumors in the lung, breast and brain. And best of all, it's non-toxic. As Sulin Go reports, it could be a more compassionate form of chemotherapy.
Sandy McDougall has been through chemotherapy 3 times. Each time she was nauseated for months and lost all of her hair.
When you lose your hair, you first lose the hair on the top of your head. But then you lose your eyebrows, and the last to go are your eyelashes. And that's like the final injustice.
Rather than be bald in public, this breast, liver, and brain cancer survivor wore wigs. She believes chemotherapy is especially hard on women.
We put so much credence in our hair and the way we look, and to not have it, or to have it look unnatural, was the hardest part for me.
But U of A researchers may have found a kinder, gentler cancer treatment. Unlike traditional chemotherapy drugs, dichloroacetate, or DCA, kills cancer cells only and doesn't affect healthy cells.
When you take chemotherapy, you get nauseated because the drug kills the stomach cells, or your heart dysfunctions because you kill the heart cells, or your skin, or you lose your hair. None of these things appear to be affected by the DCA.
The team implanted human lung tumors in live rats, taking photos inside this special scanner. Then the rats drank a DCA solution. Just 3 weeks later, the tumor, this purple blob, had shrunk from this to this.
The tumor is significantly decreased.
Decreased by up to 70%, with no negative side effects for the rat. Dr. Evangelos Mikolakis explains cancer changes a cell's metabolism, making it resistant to death. By restoring normal energy production with DCA, the cancer cell can be killed and healthy cells untouched.
It appears to hit a sensitive nerve in cancer, a fundamental trick that cancer does to stay alive.
Sandy says chemotherapy without nausea and hair loss sounds almost too good to be true.
Something like this would be the most fantastic thing ever.
And if she ever does have to go through cancer treatment again, she'd be thrilled to keep her wigs in the closet.
It would just be such a joyous thing for an oncologist to tell a woman that you're not going to lose your hair.
For Global News, this is Sulin Go reporting.
The drug has passed stage 1 trials, but researchers have yet to try it on cancer patients. They're now in the process of securing public funding, none from drug companies, so the drug can be available inexpensively, and they hope to start mass clinical trials within the next year.
Trust. Do you trust the government? We care about the small people. We care about the small people.
Applications and is relatively cheap. Applications and is relatively cheap. But as CTV's medical specialist Avis Favreau explains, redeveloping the drug may not fit into the business plans of the big pharmaceutical companies. Redeveloping the drug may not fit into the business plans of the big pharmaceutical companies.
The tumor,
Dr. Evangelos Mikolakis has given cancer researchers a brand new lead with an old drug, a cheap, inexpensive powder that costs just pennies a dose.
You typically get this eureka kind of feeling, and it's actually the most exciting thing scientists can get.
The drug, called DCA in short, has been used for decades in humans with some rare inherited diseases. When he added it to the water of mice and rats given human cancers, the results surprised him.
And has this big tumor growing in his back. So you can see that even after 3 weeks there is a significant or 70% decrease in tumor size.
It shrunk brain, breast, and lung tumors in the animals in a matter of weeks, and the drug had no side effects, confirmed by tests of DCA in humans for other diseases.
This kind of results, to my mind, are as good as it gets.
And it seems to work by reviving the energy-producing components of human cells, allowing the cells to work normally again, triggering cancerous cells to commit suicide. Scientists agree that DCA now needs to be tested quickly in human cancer patients.
This is exactly what we want, a drug that has activity, but has also minimal side effects for patients.
But there's a problem. DCA isn't owned by any pharmaceutical company. There's no patent on it. So on one hand, it could become a very inexpensive new treatment for cancer. On the other, drug companies won't be interested in funding studies for a drug that won't make them a profit.
This is a difficult question because typically, you know, there are market considerations.
So now Dr. Mikalakis has to find someone who will pay for the next round of testing.
We hope that we can attract the interest of universities here in Canada and in the United States.
And he doesn't want to let the medical dream of a cheap, effective anti-cancer drug disappear just because it might not make someone a lot of money. It costs, some say, about $100 million to get a new drug through all the phases of testing onto the market. So it will be interesting to see if this old drug actually gets a new chance at becoming an anti-cancer medication. Lloyd?
Well, Avis, your report tells us that this drug has great promise. So why aren't companies and institutions lining up to get behind it?
Well, first of all, Lloyd, this is the initial report. Secondly, because the drug isn't patented, it's an old drug, if someone invests in researching it, they're not going to make a profit because anyone can make it. So we'll have to see. There are some agencies, public agencies, government agencies that may give it funding, but that's still a question that will have to be answered.
But unless big pharmaceutical companies are behind these things, they may go nowhere, is that it?
Well, actually, Lloyd, I've had two other stories where drugs have shown great promise in the preclinical phase, and because they were orphan drugs and no one picked up, nobody could get the patent on it, they've gone nowhere. So I will be keeping an eye on this one.
Thank you very much, Avis.
Trust. Do you trust the government?
We're developing a society because of all of these different toxins known to affect brain function. We're seeing a society that not only has a lot more people of lower IQ, but a lot fewer people of higher IQ. In other words, a dumbing down, a chemical dumbing down of society. So everyone's sort of mediocre. That leaves them dependent on government because they can't excel. We have these people of lower IQ who are totally dependent. Then we have this mass of people who are going to believe anything they're told because they can't really think clearly. And very few people of very high IQ who have good cognitive function who can figure this all out. And that's what they want. So, you know, you can kind of piece it together as to why they are so insistent in spending so many hundreds of millions of dollars of propaganda money to dumb down society.
Trust. Do you trust the government?
I am telling you as an American, it's time for you to get armed. I don't really care what your background is. I don't care if you're right or left, black or white. It doesn't matter to me. Only an armed nation will survive what's coming in this country. There was a time in Germany before Hitler when the Germans were allowed to have weapons. But then Hitler came along, and one of his first laws was the seizure of all weapons from the German people, precisely to prevent an uprising against his breed of government. Fidel Castro, the good friend of Sean Penn, did the same thing in Cuba. One of the first laws that the Castro criminals enacted in Cuba was to seize the weapons of the Cuban people so there could be no uprising against these illegitimate communist ghouls.
Trust. Do you trust the government? We care about the small people. We care about the small people.